The representation of ethnicity in esports. In its basic form, esports is a version of sports where players and teams compete against each other in online multiplayer video games by completing a specific objective or higher score. In theory, apart from the game itself, other elements of the sport should be the same as traditional sports, except when it comes to the representation of ethnicity, it has a big issue. Racism and discrimination in esports have been a major issue since its inception in 1972. As well as that, minorities such as African Americans are underrepresented in it at the highest levels. On the flip side, I will also cover the bright future for the representation of ethnicity in nationalized esports, a new concept organized by the International Esports Federation that is being implemented this year in New Zealand. The text I'm using about discrimination in esports is "Esports has a racism problem" by Business Insider Australia. For racial underrepresentation in esports, I'm using "Why aren't more black kids going pro in esports" by The Undefeated. For my third text about the future of esports, I am using the new regulations from the New Zealand Esports Federation. When it comes to the representation of ethnicity in esports, racism and discrimination are one of the big issues still plaguing it. In an article released in 2016 by Business Insider Australia, a young player called Terrence Miller appeared in a professional Hearthstone tournament at DreamHack Austin. During his appearance on the official Twitch livestream, there was a non-stop stream of racist comments in the text chat from viewers about Terrence. As well as that, many of the event's chat moderators were not doing their job, going as far as to unban offending racist commenters. Terrence talked about those commenters. Obviously, the fact that it was happening bothers me, but hearing that people are saying racist things about me on the internet is nothing new, and it's not surprising that Twitch chat was doing that. The use of text chat on this internet livestream represents how a small portion of the esports fan base are racist, and how they are allowed to be racist with regular comments such as "We don't see Terrence" and "Where is Terrence?" negatively representing his skin color in the dim lighting. This represents esports complacency towards racism at the time and how Terrence had to live with it. While this report was from 2016, it shows how esports is outwardly represented to people outside of its community as toxic and discriminatory, and how it needs to change that representation. I talked to Hark, an esports player and streamer, about his experiences around online public voice chat.
There tends to be sort of a lot of people that kind of think they're a bit invincible in terms of, being behind the screen, being able to say whatever they want with no sort of punishment behind what they're saying, and not really caring about what the feelings of are around. Personally, I haven't really experienced too much sort of bad talk towards me or my friends, but I've seen on Twitter and stuff like that people do tend to get hate or toxicity around, being in that sort of voice chat around esports.
Today there is still racism and discrimination in esports, but it has improved significantly, with many leagues such as the Call of Duty League, known as the CDL, and the North American League of Legends Championship Series, known as the LCS, adding hosts and commentators of color and other genders. This representation of race on esports broadcasts from people such as Derek, Kazan, Azadu, and African American caster on the LCS helps normalize racial diversity in esports both on camera and in-game to deter racist culture and commenters. This shows promise towards the representation of ethnicity in esports, but why have very few ethnic minorities, such as African Americans, made it to the pro leagues as players? The representation of ethnicity in esports players is small and sometimes non-existent. Look at any one big esports league, particularly in the West, and you will find them predominantly populated with straight white males, with very little people of other ethnicities or genders. In an article from The Undefeated, Latoya Peterson states the underrepresentation of African Americans is not to do with their engagement with esports, as that is evenly split among ethnic groups. One of the main reasons is that equipment like PC computers, required to play the games in these tournaments are often too expensive for generally poorer groups such as African Americans. Betsy DeSalavo, a researcher at Georgia Tech, ran a test to see African American men's preferred way to play and found that they tend to play on consoles and place a higher value on competition. With that information, it is less of a surprise to see very little ethnic representation in PC-only games at the pro level like League of Legends and CSGO. The issue with this ethnic divide between PC and console esports players is that the console esports is generally significantly less supported and funded than PC leagues, meaning that for a majority of these poorer ethnic minorities, the barrier to join these big tournaments with big prize pools is too high. Some competitive games like Call of Duty and Fortnite have gotten around this by making their games available on PC and console. You can see a much better representation of ethnicity in those games' official esports, with the Call of Duty League having a mix of races amongst their teams, and Fortnite having top winners such as Thiago King Lap from Argentina. I asked Hark about his view of the representation of ethnicity in esports players.
Do the esports teams you're in and play against have mixed race players? Yes. So currently I stream for a team called Vivid Obsidian, New Zealand based org. It's got a Valorant team, it's got a CSGO team, it's got content creators, which I'm a part of. And yep, there's mixed race players in all of them. Which is super cool to have a nice diverse community. We also have there's a women's Valorant team as well, a full women's team. So within the organization there's a huge diverse culture, which I guess esports is all sort of about, bringing everyone in together. But yeah.
Overall, African Americans and other minorities are being underrepresented in esports because many of them can't afford the expensive gear to play the games to get in the big leagues, and the toxic culture means that they have to face racism if they play. Contrary to that, in the current day of New Zealand esports, we can see the major steps forward in diversity and ethnic representation. With the negative and minimal representation of ethnicity in the old style of esports, what does the future hold to improve the representation of ethnic minorities like Maori? At the New Zealand Esports Federation, they are coming up with new regulations and goals representing a bright future for New Zealand esports, where people aren't represented differently depending on their race or gender. This relates to the representation of ethnicities in esports, as it shows organizers are aware of the major issues around ethnic diversity and treatment in esports, and are working hard to rebuild esports into something without that underlying toxicity and racial exclusion. There are implications with adding a national esports program, including it takes a lot of time and commitment from the NZESF, as well as that some people don't believe in nationalized esports because it caters to a more traditional sports audience, with digital representations of traditional sports like football compared to the current commercial esports where the games are popular among the gaming community and don't often resemble traditional sports. The consequences, in a positive sense, are that esports will become entirely inclusive and diverse. While we are not far from that goal currently, as Hark stated earlier, the push of nationalization should give everyone the chance to play, making for a truly fair esports system. The use of authority in the regulations text by NZESF shows their crackdown on discrimination and promotion of diversity. The practice of esports is a fundamental right for all, and discrimination against any lineage, gender, religion, politics, individual, organization, or any reason is strictly prohibited and punishable by suspension or expulsion. This serves to eradicate discrimination from New Zealand esports. The International Esports Federation is promoting esports as a true sport beyond barriers, working with its members such as the New Zealand Esports Federation to make it happen for each country. There are currently 111 national federations that are part of the NZESF, so we should expect to see a positive improvement in the representation of ethnicity in esports worldwide.
What is your view of the esports community? To me personally, it's a very positive thing. I feel like it brings a lot of people together a lot of like-minded people together in terms of everyone likes to game, everyone wants to have fun, everyone, there's also competing as well. So it sort of entails everyone to come together to do one thing ultimately, which is to do esports.
Thank you for watching my presentation on the representation of ethnicity in esports. And thank you to Hark for letting me interview him. You can follow him online at HarkFPS on Twitter and Twitch.